10-4, good buddy. Let's see. Hello, everyone. Welcome on our channel live. I'm not alone today. I mean, tell that to my heart, but I'm physically sharing the space with the wonderful, the very funny DC Pierson. He's a member of the comedy team Derrick. Maybe you've seen their videos online, or their movie mystery team, or maybe you saw him perform live at UCB, or maybe you saw him on the show Community, or maybe you read his last book, The Boy Who Couldn't Sleep and Never Had to. DC Pierson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Beth. I'm very excited.
Us too. You just penned a new book. It's a young adult novel. It's called Crap Kingdom. I missed the subway stop this morning. True story.
You did?
I went back to Brooklyn.
What?
By accident, on my way to work here. I live in Brooklyn, was coming here, whatever.
Yeah.
Went the wrong way because
Really?
I was super involved.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Tell us about Crap Kingdom.
Crap Kingdom is a book about a kid that loves things like Harry Potter and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and basically anything where like a kid is whisked from our world into a magical fantasy world where he's the chosen one, and he learns that he actually is the chosen one in this other fantasy universe that he gets whisked away to. It just turns out that the fantasy universe that he is whisked away to, where he's the chosen one, is really, really crappy. It sucks.
It's awesome. So you are, it's pre-sale right now.
Yeah.
And you're wrapping for people who order it?
Yeah, the book
pre-sale?
actually doesn't come out until March, but if you pre-order the book right now, which really, really helps me out in a number of ways.
Just ego.
Yeah, just ego-wise.
I
I print out every pre-sale that I receive, and I kiss it, and I burn it, and I weep.
Yeah.
In that order. Sometimes I switch it up. Sometimes I weep throughout.
From the smoke.
Yes, exactly. Just from the smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
I'm just mainlining onions. Just distilled onions.
About that.
Yeah, the rumors are true.
Yeah, it's going around.
I smell terrible.
Yeah. They're like, is your smet?
Is your
smet?
smet?
Yeah, is that smet I'm smelling?
Is that smet? Smet is like smut. It's like non-dirty smut. Smet.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's what I do. I have
smut featuring the New York Mets. Yes.
Nets.
So if you pre-order, are they the Brooklyn Nets now? I don't know about
Nets.
sports. Oh, I see. Yeah, totally. Named after the internet, ironically enough. Twitter
Today
is a
is
good
called
thing.
Consonant Swap with
but
DC Pierson.
I'm gonna finish my plug really quickly.
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
The producer just held up a sign off screen that says Twitter on it. That's all it says. That's amazing.
Just to be
okay,
aware.
Twitter's the thing, guys. Just know that it's out there.
Aware.
Yeah, exactly. But if you pre-order the book on Amazon.com, you can do it at Powell's Books. You can get it for your Kindle. You can get it for your iPad. All different sorts of ways you can pre-order it. And you forward me the receipt to crapkingdom@gmail.com. I will write your name into a custom rap song. I've already done it for over 100 people. I've done 2 songs, each featuring 50 names of people that have pre-ordered the book. I rap about it. I might rhyme your name. I might make a pun on your name. I might just say it really fast at the end because I have to fit them all in. But you will feel special. You will be immortalized in the halls of hip-hop and literature. And so I highly encourage you to do that. And you can go to youtube.com/DCPierson, Pierson, to see the raps that I've already done. I think they're pretty fun. If you want to be a part of it, pre-order the book, forward me the receipt, crapkingdom@gmail.com. Not Crack Kingdom.
No, it's really so good.
Which is where she took the subway to this morning, accidentally.
Yep, my home.
Because the book is so good. And Twitter's a thing.
All right, we do have a comment from Twitter for DC. What is it? Who's it from? Let's see it. It's from Catherine Leon. What inspired you to write Crap Kingdom?
That is a very good question, Catherine. I was sort of inspired, because I always have really liked fantasy literature, and that's sort of the stuff that I grew up on in sci-fi and things like that. So I really relate to the main character who likes all those things. But also it was just sort of inspired by like the emotion and the phenomenon of basically, because the main character in the book finds out that he's this thing that he's always wanted to be, this chosen one of this fantasy universe, but then he finds out that it stinks, so he goes, you know what, I don't want to be the chosen one anymore. Then as soon as he doesn't have it anymore, he wants it back, and so he has to get it back. And I definitely related to the feeling of like, you have something, you're like, I'm good, and then you don't have it anymore, and you're like, wait, no, come back. And that holds true for like relationships, and then in this case, it holds true for fantasy kingdoms and minotaurs and junk.
Yeah, totally. And like the Hollywoody stuff and like the comedy world, and then you're like, that's the goal I want, and then you're like, oh, but remember when I had more time to myself?
Exactly.
Yeah. How much are you like this main character? I was picturing a young.
I would say, just like picturing like a 15-year-old boy with just like a giant beard, and everyone's like, ew. Which sort of adds another layer to the book.
Soon.
Yeah, you wonder why they're not mentioning it. You're like, but I know he has a big beard, right?
Yeah, right.
He's just the Unabomber. He's not. That's my next book. It's called Tina Bomber. But yeah, what was the question? I forgot now.
How much are you like him?
Fancy. Oh yeah, I would say a great deal. Like he's sort of a nerdy, introverted character, and I would say that I was somewhat that way as a teenager, for sure.
Cool. We have another comment from YouTube from you guys. This is from Raspberry Jam. How long does it take to write, edit, and publish a novel?
Great question, Raspberry Jam. This book I wrote in late 2010, and so it's going to come out in March of 2013. So I wrote the first draft of it, then I edited it throughout the next, maybe I would say 5 or 6 months, and then I sold it, so it was agreed to be like published by the company that's putting it out, Penguin, in the middle of 2011, and then it's going to be 2 years since then that it's actually published. So it takes a really, really long time.
So you started writing it before you sought out a publisher?
For sure, yeah, totally. And that's what I did with my first book as well. Both of them were completely written before they were sold. So it's like you kind of write a book and then you go, ugh.
And that's the general formula for all great novels, right? Is that you write it, you have about
and then
a
you
year,
go like,
and then, yeah. Awesome. Well, how do you,
Yeah.
what's your process? Do you like spurt out? Spurt's a tough word.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Do you do a lot of it in like a week? You just like sit down and spurt is just going to it's all I can't think of a single other verb for that.
And then
do you just like go for it, or do you like dedicate 2 hours a day?
Young adult book, teenagers and adults. This book I outlined over a summer while I was doing other things. I was like acting in a thing, and I was sort of like doing it in a very lackadaisical, on again, off again manner. And then I wrote it all really, really fast. I wrote the first draft really, really fast. I outlined it heavily. Yeah, I would advise that to like anybody that wants to write, especially a longer thing. Like if you're just writing a short story, it's like a guy goes to the store, then he goes home. You probably know sort of enough to like start writing it.
Yeah, and if that's your short story, just don't.
Don't
I've
even
heard
bother.
It, you know?
Yeah, we've heard, oh my God, guy goes to the store. That's what every show's about. A guy
Yeah.
going to a store. We've seen
home,
it. He
you
goes
know?
home. Exactly.
Except for the one with Natalie Portman when she didn't go home, when she stayed there and lived there.
Yeah, V for
Remember
Vendetta.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I outlined it and then I wrote it all really fast over the course of a month, the first draft anyway, and that was a lot of time per day. Although typically I normally don't write more than like 2 hours a day, which is sort of blasphemy, but I don't, writing is really
I have a hard time getting into like a habit of I love writing, but I can't get into the I go in spurts.
Right.
Of really feeling it and I get a bunch out and then I just lose it.
Beth?
I'm not stopping that. Let's go to a comment on YouTube. This is from the Snazzy Sneakers. Well, I want to see those sneakers. Weirdest thing you've ever encountered in New York? So you used to live here and now you don't.
I used to live here, yeah. I lived here for 7 years, and now I live in Los Angeles. I've been gone for about 3 years now. Yeah, the weirdest thing I ever witnessed, that's a really good question. I guess the first thing that leaps to my mind, I have 2 stories. One that was just super weird. There was an older Asian man, a homeless man on the subway, really late at night, and he was holding like a big tub of some sort of unspecified gray material, and he would kind of like open it up and then like balance it on his hand, and it was really scary because you didn't want it to get spilled on you, but then he would just like balance it and kind of look at it and then put the cap back on, and then he put it down, and then he pulled his jacket sleeve out and he started pulling like little goose feathers out of it and then lighting them on fire with a lighter in a subway car very late at night. So that was exciting. So you already wanted to move away from him because of the weird gray material. Then once he started literally immolating his own jacket.
Like, where is this?
Exactly. Then I came back and then I was like, he seems like a bad boy. I feel like I can fix him, So we're married now. I didn't fix it. He's dead.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say that my other favorite New York moment is I was in college and I had long hair like I do now, but I didn't have the beard. And I was walking along the park very late at night, and I tried to dress as much as possible. I guess not really today, but my fashion ideal is like a female babysitter in an 80s horror movie. So I'm wearing like a heather gray like hoodie with like pink lettering on it, and I'm walking along the park, and it's really late at night. And this big black dude is walking the other way, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Girl, I want to see you smile." Because he thought I was a lady, as often happens because I have long blonde hair.
And then you're like, then you just gave him
and
a
then
big old one.
And I was like, ding! And on my teeth it said, "I have a penis."
Yeah, right?
Which I have on there. I
they got that. Right, now you just put the whitening thing on. We were like, not for this show. Yeah.
It seemed like a little much.
Yeah, we know. We get the picture, but the beard is now enough for that. Weirdest thing I ever saw once on the subway, I think, just remind me of this, is I saw a man once eat an avocado. It had its shell on it, or its coat, whatever you have it. Its coat. He was holding things in one hand, so he only had one hand, and he ate an entire avocado, like de-peeled it with his teeth, and put the peelings in his palm, and then ate the entire avocado like an apple. But first he de-peeled it with his teeth. Mm-hmm. It was obviously one where the skin came off nicely and lucidly, the ones that Giada always has. But he like took it off.
So jealous of Giada. Where's she getting
these avocados?
Right?
They're always.
You guys can relate.
You know what I'm talking about. You all know what you all.
Yeah, totally.
feel-
Audience of 15-year-old boys, you know all about Giada's avocados.
They probably
if
do
you
know about
what I
Giada's
mean.
avocados. I know. She's got the best boobs. Next Twitter, I just had to say it because I was thinking. Anyway, Twitter question. It's from the real Criction. When will you drop a solo album or at least a mixtape?
And in his Twitter icon, he's just a guy with a horse head. So it's nice to know that the horse-headed people community really are fans of my rap music. I have completed a mixtape, but my friend has it on his computer and he hasn't mixed it yet. So, because he's in another band, and they're doing band stuff. Yeah, I know, putting out albums and stuff. So he hasn't mixed it yet. So I'm waiting. And then I'm continuing to record stuff. I'm actually getting a lot more back into rap currently. I have a couple of features on a couple songs coming up, so you can look for that pretty soon. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll talk about it.
We like that. Yeah, I like your rapping.
Thank you.
Charles Gambino, and that's really good.
Yes.
And also, just pre-order
And also
the book.
just petting
all of this,
a book.
Yeah, they're kind of putting out an album with all of your
Sorta,
your
yeah,
stuff.
exactly, yeah.
It's like
yeah.
it's like it, except it's not in a mixtape form.
Right, precisely. I'm mixing it up.
It's your
That's what I
2012
do.
version of it.
2012, you guys.
Yeah,
2K12.
mixtape. Here's another comment from Twitter. This is from Paul Lardiero. How long did it take him to come up with the plot for The Boy Who Couldn't Sleep? Did it just flow? Was it tough?
Wonderful question, Paul. It's sort of vaguely based on an idea that I first had when I was in high school, which was just the idea of somebody not having a biological need for sleep. And then I decided I wanted to write a novel, and I thought, oh, that was a cool idea. And then I sort of thought about it a lot, and I added stuff onto it and sort of built it out. And then I outlined the plot very heavily, like we talked about. And obviously, when you're actually then writing through something based on an outline, you sort of naturally find connections and weird things that sort of change your initial outline. So it's never the same as what you thought it was going to be initially. So it kind of requires you going back and re-outlining and changing things around. So it was a combination of that initial idea and then just sort of really heavily laying it out.
You have a good process.
Plotting. It could be. Could be worse.
It's commendable. I like that.
Thank you.
Another comment is from Donut Nazi. Which is worse, sardines or anchovies? Everyone wants to answer this.
Yeah, I get this question.
Which is worse?
All
Which
the
is
time.
better?
Yeah, exactly. The sardines and the anchovies are kind of like the
Do you like
Israelis
them?
and the Palestinians, and I've been appointed to broker peace between them, and it's hard. It's really hard. I actually don't like sardines and anchovies.
You don't?
I'm not sure do I know that? Do I know the? I
know
don't think I
what
know
they
the
are?
difference. I do know what they are. They're like salty fish that sometimes they're on pizza and cartoons when a kid's like, oh no, anchovies.
Yeah.
That's all I know them from. I feel like I've had them once on pizza and it was pretty good. They're kind of
Really
salty.
good. They're
and good.
salty. Yeah. Anchovies are the ones that are sardines are hairier.
That's not
Exactly.
a word you ever want to hear used to describe fish.
Exactly, I know. But I had them, I used to eat them at this restaurant that I worked at all the time. At the end of the night, it was dark, and I had them on this little chickpea thing. They were delicious. And then one day I had it during the day, and that's when I saw it. I was like, I've been eating this, and you could see its eyeball. It changed. I was like, this isn't.
I think you
what
just
thought
described
it
the
was
plot
doing.
of the book 50 Shades of Grey, right?
Oh my God.
That's what happens in it?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, here's one from Tumblr. Alec the intern. How do you take care of the hair?
It's a great question, Alec. I get this one a lot. I just rub sardines into this side and anchovies into this side, and then no one wants to talk to me.
And with the onion.
Yeah. I would say I wash my hair probably. I could wash it more. I definitely could wash it more.
No, it's a good thing to.
Thank you.
know,
You don't
do
want to
it just-
damage it though. You don't want to wash it too much. That's a
Yeah.
mistake that a lot of people make. No, but I'm featured in. I promise there's a point to this. A couple of commercials that are on right now. I'm in an Allstate commercial and a Fiber One commercial, and in both of them I'm wearing beanies. And the reason I'm wearing beanies is because when I went to the initial audition, sometimes I won't wash my hair for many days, so I'll put a beanie on because it gets really greasy and gross. And so I want to just cover it up as much as possible. And I wore them in the audition because I was just hadn't showered in days because I'm disgusting. And they were like, "Yeah, you look cool in it." So I ended up wearing them in the commercial, in the Fiber One commercial. I'm actually wearing my own beanie.
Oh my gosh.
There's
how
a
much-
little DVD
they
commentary
have to
on
pay
the
you for
Fiber One
that.
commercial. They
More.
did kit fee. It's
Yeah.
called. A little industry pointer for you
Boom.
guys.
Boom. That actually happened to me once. I booked a commercial and I went there. All I had to do was sniff a cantaloupe, so I didn't even care about the audition. And I
All
came
your
from
stories
the
are
gym.
weirdly tactile. There's hairy
Fruits and
anchovies
vegetables is all I deal with. Is
sniffing
produce.
cantaloupes,
Produce.
Giada's avocados.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
gosh.
wink. Am I right? Google.
So I went. I didn't wash my hair. And when I went to film it or to do the commercial, they did me up, and I came out, and the people were like, "Who is this? We don't want.
Right.
We don't want this look. We want what they had." And then we filmed it in North Carolina, and the woman who did my hair and makeup was all mad, and as she's taking out the niceness that she put in my hair, she said, "You don't need to go to New York to get girls who look like this."
Ooh, burn
Which is-
on the people who live where she
But
lives.
but I'm from Wisconsin, so I was like, yeah, just make me look like who I am.
Yeah,
Take out this
damn.
fanciness.
Just like, I just want to be real, you know?
Seriously.
I'm like Shia LaBeouf. Real.
The realest.
The
of
realest
real.
dude, yeah.
With a name like that, how could you not
How
be?
could you not be?
Next comment is from Ignore the Symbols. All right, got it. Where would you like to be in 10 years regarding your career?
Ignore the symbols. I would like to be doing basically what I'm doing now, except for on a larger scale. I would like to continue to write books. I would like to
Just
continue to be
bigger.
in.
Just bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Just physically
Just-
larger
just
books.
physically, yeah.
Like I want to
I
create
want
a
a
book that's like
bigger-
the size of the monolith at the beginning of 2001, and people just you have to. You know,
Yeah.
but it's boring.
Doesn't
the book
fit.
is really slow and boring.
All right, so
Yeah,
same,
so sort of
same
bigger,
stuff,
yeah,
but-
exactly. Same stuff, just, writing books and acting and things and doing comedy, doing stand-up, doing storytelling stuff, all that stuff, but just more.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to keep doing what you're doing?
I
Everything you're
enjoy
doing
it.
is pretty fun and
Thank
awesome
you.
with cool people and really enjoyable
Thank
and
you.
great. I'm a big fan. So your show you did last night at UCB
Yes.
is DC Pierson is good at stand-up?
Yes, it was a stand-up show.
And you've done DC Pierson's Bad at
I do a storytelling show called DC Pierson is Bad at Girls, and I'm hoping to tape and put out online at some point.
ask.
Yeah.
Great.
So people will be able to see it, because
Yeah.
as of now, I've only done it live.
Yeah, we want that.
Okay, you'll
Right,
get
guys?
it. That's a promise.
That's all the time we have for today. We end on promises. Guys, go buy Crap Kingdom on Amazon or
Powell's or anything, any online place you can buy books,
Yep.
pre-order it, and then send me the receipt.
not only for a really fun read, it's so good, but for a rap from DC, where can people see more of you, like live and online?
I post the most at dcpearson.tumblr.com and twitter.com/dcpearson. So follow me at both of those places and you'll get the info.
Yeah.
You'll get the inside track.
Do that. Thanks for coming to the show, DC.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. It's
Thank
super
you for
fun.
watching, you guys. Subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow. My
Thanks,
sister
guys.
Julie will be here. We'll answer your questions and maybe we can teach her the internet. 10-4, good buddy. You're my favorite.
Bye, guys. Thanks.